Yo, it's that time. Get ready to unwind with Jillian on the mic. The best you'll find. Pop that cork. Let's start to chat on the Polywine podcast, where it's all that. Join the crew as we dive into the scene. Current events heated, know what I mean? Jillian sitting pretty while pouring the wine. Hot topics bubbling, everything aligns. From politics to the latest in fame. Reality TV, it's never the same. Grab your glass, let's raise it high in the world of
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Polywine, where we like to take a deep dive into stories pulled from the media and have a fun time while breaking it down. I'm Jillian, and let's get into it. Well, today we are going to be taking a stroll through the political arena and discussing the intersection of technology and democratic power. Join us today on the show is Ramon Perez from the Digital Democracy Project, where the focus is on understanding how digital ecosystems are redefining civic engagement, political behavior, and the integrity of elections themselves. So please join us on the show today, our guest, Ramon Perez. Well, thank you so much today for joining us. We have a very special guest, Ramon Perez, and you are a founder of the Digital Democracy Project, correct?
That is correct.
And you also have a very wide background. You were a veteran. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for your service. So much respect to you, and especially to all your brothers and sisters that are active and are all over right now. So thank you so very much. And you have a background in AI. So
I do indeed.
how did your background in the military and AI merge together and create this new platform? I was going through your bio on your website, and you have a very impressive team. So,
Well, it's very
how did
kind.
you and your team come together?
No, I appreciate that, and I
Yeah,
appreciate you having me on. Thank you. Yeah,
sure.
so I'm Ramon Perez. I'm the executive director of Digital Democracy Project. We started this project back in 2021, and the
Wow.
basic concept is we're using mobile voting software that has been used for military voters overseas to cast an absentee ballot on their phones, but we're using it in a different way. We're saying, what if we let people weigh in on active legislation and be part of the debate and tell their legislators what they want them to do on every bill that's coming through in Congress or in their state legislature, and then holding their legislators to account for the results. So we match what the people wanted in the app to what the
hmm
legislators actually did on the floor for that same bill, and give them
Right.
all a scorecard that shows how closely they match the will of the people. And so the concept came up when actually after September 11th, or sorry, I would say after September 11th, I joined the military. I
Okay.
served in Afghanistan, uh, did 4 combat zone
Wow.
deployments, and I think it was then fast forward to January 6th, where it felt like, we'd spent 20 years trying to build democracies in other parts of the world, and it
Right.
started to feel like it was falling apart here at home. And watching people, you know, storm the Capitol,
Yeah.
it was a pivotal moment. I think equally that is such a crazy, year 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
because we also saw in Portland, that the city was mostly taken over by an anarchist group. And I was in Portland in late 2021 and saw really the devastation that wrought on the
Really?
city. And I think that what that said to me was that if democracy fails to deliver for people, if it
hmm
doesn't meet their needs, if it doesn't do what it's designed to do, and it appears to be corrupt and no longer accountable, people are going to turn to alternatives for political representation. And for some people, that's going to be dictatorship, a cult of personality, or for others, it's going to be anarchy, no government at all. And we have to get back to the notion that democracy is still the best form of government, but we have to prove it. And we have to
Right.
prove it by modernizing. We have to prove it through reform. And that's where a lot of the concept of this project came from, is that the tools and the technologies have advanced so much that we now have the ability to completely reimagine our system of government to be more accountable, to be more transparent, to be more back into the hands of the voters, where we can cut out a lot of the middlemen that stand between us and our representatives, and that stand between us and our government. All the campaign finance process,
Super PAC.
the PACs, the lobbying, the
Lobbyists.
billionaire donor class.
Yes.
There's so much that there's so many middlemen, that
So much money.
and actually I would argue too that gerrymandering is probably one of the key smoking guns.
Yes.
So it's money in politics. It's drawing the districts so that there's no real competition anymore. 90% of Americans live in a congressional district that is completely uncompetitive, because by the time November rolls around, the race has already been decided, because it's either a safe red or safe blue district. 80% of Americans live in a state that is a one-party state, where one political party controls the governor's mansion and both branches of the legislature, and oftentimes the courts as well. And people just don't have any sense of accountability, because realistically, there is no true competition either between the Democrats and Republicans. So we still talk in terms of a two-party system, but the reality for most people is that most Americans live in a one-party system. And that, just depending on where you happen to live in the country, that you really have no choices. So we need to have, and I think, and that's why you see, you increasingly see this mass movement towards independence, people checking out of the party process because they've lost faith in the political parties, and the way that they pick candidates, the way they promote specific candidates, and the way they box out any real competition for new ideas. And that also comes down to the fact that, the basic conflict of interest that exists in our election systems is that the people who make the laws are the same people who get to turn around and run for election under those laws that following November. So it'd be like, if you like sports analogies, it'd be like if the New England Patriots got to write the rules.
I have New England fans in my house. I'm like, no. Okay, it's fine. I'm sorry.
I mean, if we remember the Deflategate scandal and some of the other sign stealing scandals.
Yes.
The only reason that they got busted for that was because that the NFL, as an independent arbiter, sets the rules and enforces the rules. And if the Patriots got to write their own rules, then they'd be able to write the rules in a way that anything they do is legal. And that's the basic problem that we have with our system of elections, is that the rules are written by the people who are currently in office and are meant to prevent any real competition from them losing their jobs.
And it just seems like especially now currently, that even the rules that are in place and laws are a little shaky. It sounds like there's a go around right now.
Right.
It doesn't seem as
and
strong.
I happen to think that, yeah, exactly. That's why you see so many people checking out of the process. That's why you see such incredible voter apathy, is because people have kind of rightly figured out that depending on which district you're in, your vote really doesn't matter. And a lot of people have become independents. So your options are, you can either become really engaged in the party and try to vote in primaries. And I've actually met, I split time between Florida and Northern Virginia, but I know a lot of Democrats in Florida who have registered as Republicans just so that they can vote in the Republican primary, knowing that no Democrat is going to win statewide office. So they'd rather have some say in the Republican primary than no say at all by continuing to vote for Democrats. So that's one option.
Or no vote at all.
Or no vote at all. They just sit it out, right? Or they become independents. And then in Florida, we have a closed primary system. So independents, there are 3.5 million voters who don't even get a say in the primaries.
Right.
So they have, and by the time November rolls around, at the state house and state senate level, it's even worse than at the federal level. So it's somewhere around 94 to 96% of races in 2024 at the state house and senate level were completely uncompetitive, meaning they were not within a 5 percentage point margin come November elections. And
Mhm.
a lot of times there's not even a candidate on the ballot. I think it was something like 70% of state house and state senate races where there wasn't even, the opposing party didn't even bother to run somebody because they knew it was so heavily baked for
Yeah.
the other side. So you don't even, if you're an independent, you don't even have somebody you could vote against the incumbent. So
Yeah.
it's kind of madness. Like, the situation we find ourselves in is so far removed from, I think, the original Washingtonian ideals of our constitutional republic. And I think what we are proposing is that the technology landscape has evolved so fast that we now have tools to let people have a secure, verifiable mechanism for having a say directly in government, where we validate them against the voter file, the vote files that we get from the states. We
Mhm.
validate them with a photo ID that matches their face against the document, and we use a high quality what they call state ramp, state certified
Mhm.
election software, so that there's no possibility of manipulation of the vote in the process. So between the time I cast it and the time it's counted, there's no risk of manipulation. The vote token goes onto a blockchain. That blockchain gets audited by third parties, and cybersecurity hacking. There's tons of homomorphic encryption and lots of other device level encryption to make sure that somebody couldn't try to steal grandma's identity and
Right.
create an account on her behalf. You can only, so there's a lot of thought put into the mobile voting software itself. We use the votes system, which is VOATZ, which
I
has
checked
been
it out.
used. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's
Very cool.
been, yeah, it's super cool stuff.
Yeah.
And we're using it as the sort of the foundational technology to make this work. It's been, I think, about 5 million votes cast so far in the
Awesome.
Votes app for binding elections
Right.
across about 150 different elections in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico. In fact, the Mexican government went so far as to allow all of their all Mexicans outside the country to vote absentee using the Votes app in their last national election.
Very cool.
So hundreds of thousands, or I think it was something like 1 million or so people were eligible to vote by their phone.
Awesome.
In Canada, in Ontario, they've created enabling legislation so that municipalities can use it, and so a bunch of city elections are going to happen on the Votes app in the upcoming municipal election. So I think
Mhm.
it's gaining ground, and it's been a key enabler of this project. But we also, I think, are very fortunate that AI has really become incredibly useful for us to allow us to rapidly read and summarize legislation, provide nonpartisan, fact-based analysis of
Mhm.
what's actually in the bill, the black and white text, where if you go to our website, we now have a chatbot that sits on the pages and lets you ask detailed questions about the bill, because we can load the entire legislative language. That could be 1,000 pages
Right.
of documents, right? And it's
You have
deep
to translate it for
legalese.
everybody. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you
Yes.
think about what are the barriers to entry for that make it hard for us to engage, it's all of the middlemen I mentioned, all the
Mhm.
campaign finance, all the rules and election rules that make it very practically impossible. But then when it comes to actual legislating, the documents are written by lobbyists and lawyers for some judge someday. They're not written for us to be able
Mhm.
to understand what the bill says. They're dense legalese, and it's meant to be interpreted in a courtroom if there's ever a conflict on
Right.
this law, right?
Right.
So it is not designed for the people that it impacts, realistically. It's designed for the lawyers who argue in favor or against it.
Right.
And that means that translation is incredibly powerful. What AI can give us, and being able to read 1,000-page omnibus and say, how does the one big beautiful bill affect food stamps? That's what people care about.
Yeah.
And that's buried in section 231, B.
Right. 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 In the
So
fine print. Yeah.
exactly. And
Right.
that's been
Right.
an enormous game changer, because at the beginning of this project, when we started, we, you know, we signed the original agreement with votes in 2021. We went into beta testing in 2022, and we launched the first live legislative session in the beginning of 2023 in Florida. And at that time, we were reading the bills ourselves. And so I had a Republican and a Democrat staffer, people who worked on Capitol Hill, read legislative language for a living. And I would have them work on summaries of the bill and try to find a consensus summary that was nonpartisan and factually accurate. And that is tedious and time consuming. And what AI has allowed us to do is truly accelerate the speed at which we can summarize these documents and then give it to a human to review to make sure that it doesn't say anything crazy, that everything that it says is factually accurate, that it's nonpartisan. So we still have human in the loop, but it allows us to rapidly to do this and carry a lot more bills in our system so people can weigh in on bills that otherwise...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, do you think members of Congress can use it as well? Because there's so many incidences where they go to vote on a bill and they haven't read it or barely read any of it. So
that is,
I hope they can use your tool as well.
Yes, that is the dirty little secret. People will come to me and say, well, we vote for these members of Congress so that we don't have to read the bills. They're doing it on our behalf and we trust them to be, smart and focused on these policies. And I'll say the dirty little secret is they don't read the bills either. And honestly, it's because we haven't had a Congress functioning under regular order in 15 years maybe now. This is a Democrat and Republican problem. That the leadership in especially the House, it's very bad. It's gotten that bad in the Senate too. But the leadership, basically any kind of marquee legislation, they drop it on them at the latest hour. They'll hold these vote-a-ramas until 2:00 in the morning. Nobody's read these bills. The one big beautiful bill was passed like that. thousands of pages. They basically write the thing in a dark room and then unleash it on the members with no real forewarning. And these are the major policy documents. These aren't, renaming a post office, which will move through regular order and give everybody a chance to debate it. These are like, major changes to tax policy and domestic policy, and funding ICE was,
affect daily lives.
Right. I mean, significant decisions that are made in the scope of a couple of hours when nobody really has a chance to debate. So I just think that we need to acknowledge how broken the system has gotten before people will come around to the fact that, okay, well, now we have better tools. Now we have better options. What if we could just reimagine a system of government that puts power directly into the hands of the people instead of just continuing to tweak around the edges, like trying to fix this system at the margins. So that's what I think we're hoping for with our project.
And people feel like they are involved. They're going to be more engaged. And I think they're going to get more excited about it, to be a part of the process as well, I think. And I wanted to say something that I thought was pretty cool about the votes and how you can do your voting online. I was also thinking, because you have mentioned that you thought about it because of military abroad and having to send in their mail-in vote. And sometimes it can take weeks. And if there's a contentious election, living in DC for a long time, those are protests. So, sometimes it could be weeks of protests, and people are very passionate about the election and their outcome. But I was not only thinking about the absentee ballots, but what about people that can't get to cast their ballot? Well, the elderly, those that have disabilities, and so people that don't have transportation. So having this accessible to them just relieves so much stress. They're still part of it. And I mean, it's bad enough that we don't have a holiday for vote. We've already put up challenges just to get out and to vote. That'll be such a relief for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I was a military member and voted in elections myself, where I think I was in a presidential, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but I think I voted in a presidential election while I was stationed in Korea. I think I voted in another presidential election while I was in London. And I can recall that it was a primary because by the time my absentee ballot got through the mail, the person I was voting for in the primary had dropped out. So my my ballot was a waste. And again, with mobile voting, I would actually be able to go in and change my vote. That's the other cool
Oh,
thing,
you can do
right?
that. Okay.
Yes, the Votes app
Okay.
supports this because basically what happens is my vote token goes onto the blockchain. That's an immutable ledger, but I can submit another one, and it doesn't. Both would end up on the blockchain, but the most recent one would be the one that gets counted. So it essentially says my original vote was X, but then I that person dropped out of the race or whatever. So I'll vote for this other person now. I mean, I just read
Nice.
Eric Swalwell dropped out of the California governor's race today. So you got that kind of situation, right?
Yeah, I don't think you had
You
a
know,
choice in that situation.
these things
Not good.
happen. These things happen, right? So I
Well,
think that's the other power of mobile voting. If you're in a submarine under the water, you can't even get a piece of mail out, for one, but
yeah,
they can get internet access oftentimes because of satellite links.
right.
But also, some states have started, like you say, actually introducing mobile voting for people with vision impairments, where
Great.
you can't necessarily do the touch screens at a polling booth
Hmm.
without somebody standing over your shoulder and reading out the screen to you. So then you
Hmm.
lose your secret ballot. You lose your
Right.
right to privacy.
Yes.
Whereas you can use the accessibility features on your iPhone and you can have it read off the ballot to you, and that still protects your right to privacy and allows you to vote securely from your phone.
Okay.
Another use case, I
That's
think
really
I read
great.
that, yeah, it's super cool.
I
I
have a
think I
child with
read that,
disabilities, so I do a lot of work with
okay,
organizations
yeah,
with disabilities, and it is such a hurdle for them. And a
yeah,
lot of them, it becomes overwhelming sometimes and
yeah.
too much of a challenge. So they actually don't go forward with
Yeah,
the
well,
process.
here's the other thing a lot of people
That's
don't
great.
consider is how about you're in a polling booth, there's a line of people behind you, and you're like, okay, you know the top people on this list, but what about all these judges? What
Yeah.
about some city councilman? You're not aware of that race so much. You'd like to have a say, but you haven't really learned a lot about these before you got to the polling booth.
Right.
Or what about some bond issuance? You know, they want to raise $100 million to build a highway expansion, or they want to
Mhm.
do whatever. There are a lot, those are like more complex. And California is going to have something like 30 ballot initiatives on
Yeah.
the ballot this year. Arizona is on track to have something like 30 plus citizens ballot, not actually citizens, the legislator is putting constitutional amendments for citizen approval on the ballot in Arizona, and it's going to be like a record number on
Oh,
that
wow.
ballot. So you're talking about a ballot that could be, I don't know, 15, 20 pages, who knows by the time it gets done with. And
Right.
so if you're standing there in a polling booth trying to ingest all of this information, you're seeing it for the first time. That's an enormous cognitive burden when you have a line of people behind you potentially.
Right.
Whereas if you're sitting in your living room and
Hmm.
you can pull that up and say, oh, this ballot, initiative is about whatever, that the topic is, you can then go and do some, educate yourself about it on Google or on ChatGPT or whatever
Hmm.
your tool of choice. Um, Ask people about it, get on social media, phone a
Hmm.
friend, whatever. It just gives you a bit of, it gives you the opportunity to sit on your couch and do some real thinking
Yeah.
about how these policies affect you and your community, your family, and whether or not you think it's a good idea, rather than just either going straight party line or just skipping anything you're not aware of,
Yes.
which is what oftentimes people do.
Very tribal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Do have to ask you because I think this platform is very, very cool. With last week, with Trump signing the executive order of mail-in ballot, will this create any hurdles for this at all? Or I know there's some
So
contesting of that right now, but will that
yeah,
present any hurdles, if you don't mind me asking?
technically, from our point of view, we're not really impacted by that because
Okay.
we are a nonprofit organization. We're not
Okay.
a supervisor of elections office.
Okay.
We're using the same tools and the same process of a supervisor of
Okay.
elections in the sense that we're verifying people against a voter file. We're
Mhm.
verifying people against identity. They use the same two-factor authentication, device level encryption, and everything that we follow the exact same protocol as that mobile voting is required to use in any of the states where votes is operating. Um, the difference is that we are letting people weigh in on legislation and provide their inputs to legislators. So it's considered more advisory voting, which is not at all regulated or under the concern of any sort of government control.
Okay.
Because it's basically just a modern replacement for calling your congressman on the switchboard or sending them an email. And I would argue a greatly improved version of that, because if you call your congressman or send them an email, you have no idea, for one, if they ever hear it, because a lot of times, I mean, I've been in a fair number of legislators' offices and seen how much spam they get. And so much is now AI generated emails. So if they cannot verify that you are a real human being, and B, actually live in their district, and C, are registered to vote, which is actually what they often care about, they're just not going to pay attention to the email or the phone calls, because they just can't validate who you say you are.
Right.
Whereas what we're providing does all of that on the front end, so that they actually can trust the results, because they know that these are real voters and they're actually in their districts.
Right.
So the other thing is, if you call your, congressman, you have no idea if you are a 90%, a 90 on a 90-10 issue, or if you're on a 50-50 issue. In other words, you don't know the other people who've called the congressman or sent them an email. You don't know where they stand. You don't know where the whole district stands on this particular issue. Am I the lone person who believes in this, Iran war powers resolution, or am I in the majority on this issue, and I have, millions of people behind me who also believe the same thing? And I think that level of transparency is really incredibly important, because people need to see, if they're going to hold their legislators accountable, they want to see that they have a broad base of support on this issue too, so that they can say, look, like, we as a community told you how we wanted you to vote, and the majority, we had a large number of people. They all took the time to weigh in on this issue, and they believe you should vote X, and you voted Y, and now we're going to punish you at the ballot box. But in order to do that, you have to have the transparency to see what the community wants, and have confidence that again, they're real people, and they are actually in the same district as you, so they are part of your community.
Right. So there's a little bit of polling kind of in there, because is that what I'm understanding? Is a little bit of polling that you can do also? You can be a part of that?
People will draw that comparison. I would say one of the things that we don't do is we don't try to identify who are the magical likely voters, right? That is a thing so polling companies make a lot of money off of that, the statistical alchemy that they are providing to say that these 500 people are a beautifully representative sample of likely voters who are going to actually turn out and vote in November.
Right.
That's what a polling company can do.
Sure.
And they're very expensive, because there's a lot that goes into making that possible. So a legislator can spend 40, 50 grand to run a poll in his district. And so they're not going to do that very often. Whereas the difference with us is we're carrying every bill. Nobody's going to poll on every single bill. They're not going to, so you've got big topics like the war on Iran, which has plenty of polling. But, we've carried bills that some legislators sponsored, which created a trail network in Florida, which tied together a bunch of different bicycle and pedestrian trails that were disparate and disconnected, and put money into connecting all of these things. So you have you could literally bicycle around the whole state at this point because of these investments. Well, that gets no coverage in the media, and that gets no polling. But it's definitely interesting to the legislators who sponsor the legislation. And it is interesting to the communities that potentially benefit from it. And if they had to go and poll, it wouldn't be worth their time or money.
Okay.
But if they can put this out on Digital Democracy Project and get people to weigh in on it, and people will come back and say, oh yeah, I love this idea, this is great.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the more popular bills we carried. It tended to have broad bipartisan support, which is why it gets no media coverage, right?
People get along and agree on something? What?
I know. I mean, that's the other issue too, is that oftentimes if a legislator wants to get the word out about an initiative like that, they have to go through this sort of biased media process
Right.
with a media that is designed for enragement. It is not designed around consensus or
Right.
positive news stories. And so it gets no coverage, it gets no take up. And that's why it's a struggle oftentimes. You go to a, if you go to a county, the county's considering, or the school board especially, okay, school board's considering rezoning,
Right.
all right, but they hold the meetings at 2:00 on a Tuesday, and like 5 people show up.
Right.
So,
By design, I think. Right. Yeah. Right.
right,
Right. But I
yeah,
was going to compliment that because I think because it isn't direct polling, and I myself, and I know a lot of people in the DC, we don't trust polls, especially after the last 2 elections. Those pollings were just unreliable. The numbers inconsistent. And when you see the polling, we're like, who are they polling? Like, this does not represent me, my area, anywhere now around where I live. So I like that. It's not polling, but you are still a part of it and you get your voice across and your thought.
yeah,
And the more
yeah,
you
and I think that's
know,
right.
better choices you make.
Exactly. The other issue I have a hard time kind of articulating, but I feel like one of the issues that I have with polling is that it almost reinforces this two-party concept, which
Yeah.
I think is really quite artificial.
Yeah.
I think that people don't live in a left and right dichotomy. I think that is forced upon us
It
by
is.
the fact that we have a two-party system. And so this tribalism is almost a design of a media ecosystem that puts people into camps and puts every concept or idea or policy into those camps and
Mhm.
writes a bunch of articles about those camps and how those camps are fighting with each other. And actually, if you look,
Destructive.
if you put just the policies in front of people, as we do with legislation all the time, what you find is that people in their minds hold what you might regard as completely mutually exclusive ideas in their head at any given time with no qualms whatsoever.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
had somebody send me an email just yesterday about a bill that we carried. I think it was like ICE or TSA funding, something like that. And it was an email that said, and I'll quote this person because I thought it was a brilliant illustration of this point.
Okay.
But the email said, as far as ICE is concerned, we need e-verify and an end to birthright citizenship, not funding police state paramilitaries.
Mhm.
And I was blown away by this because on the one hand, it was like very, very sort of, I guess, MAGA style
Right.
immigration restrictions at the same time as being anti-ICE. Like very right wing, left wing at the same time. Like, this is my
Right.
point. These concepts of left and right, those are completely artificial.
Yeah.
And people, when given the choices, have much more nuance in what they think is the best sort of policy design.
Right.
And that's what we need. That's what we try to get to with what we're
Mhm.
doing. And my concern with polling is that oftentimes polling just seems to reinforce that existing left-right lens
Agree.
to everything,
I agree.
you know?
And plus, I just don't think after the last 2 elections, how can we trust them? Because the numbers
Mm,
were nowhere near what actually was happening. I mean,
mm,
way off.
mhm.
So, and it is a lot of money too. And I like that we can we can participate and be and involved in it on your platform. I think that's pretty cool.
Right. And the other thing too is that we accept the fact that not everybody's going to vote on everything. We carried
Right.
like 750 bills over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We started with Florida legislation, then now we're doing federal, and we've expanded to another 6 states. So we've got 7 states
Very cool.
legislations. Our goal is to be in all 50 states
Nice.
next year. So we're trying
Oh,
to be
wow.
ambitious in our growth strategy
Okay,
here.
great.
We want people to be able to vote on all state legislation as well as federal legislation in all
Mhm.
50 states. But you can't expect people to vote on every single bill. So people are going to jump in on the topics they care about
Mhm.
and ignore the rest. So if
Sure.
people are really passionate about gun policy or abortion or taxes or whatever the issue is, they're going to jump in and they're going to have something to say about that tax bill or that ICE funding bill or whatever it is. But that's not going to be often captured. I think when in polling, what polling tries to do is get to this kind of likely voter which is this sort of like massive in the middle, when really people are not driven like that. They tend to care a lot about a few different topics and not at all about everything else. And we
Right.
want to try to provide a mechanism for them to engage on those few topics, but not have to answer a call from a pollster about, some topic that they've never really thought about, don't have a strong opinion about, and now they're being forced to choose, a yes, no, or whatever.
Right.
Whereas we just want to provide a platform where somebody says, I don't like this particular, or here's a bill that's coming forward that I think affects me. I want to have a say on that.
Hmm.
But the rest of the time, I'm not going to really participate. So we need to be supportive of that. We have some people who are super voters, vote on every single thing, vote
Right.
on, and very proudly so. And I'm really glad for those folks.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
They want to read every bill. They want to form an opinion on every bill. They'll go and talk to our AI chatbot and ask detailed questions, and then they'll come and form an opinion, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be most people, right? So we want to be able to support any citizen who wants to be involved in government,
Yeah.
and that's our audience.
Yeah. And I think it's great because I want someone to go to a reliable source. I don't want them to get their information off like TikTok. No offense to TikTok, but so it's nice they have a reliable source to go to and get accurate, up-to-date information and break it down in detail for them. And if they don't understand, they can go back and reread it. So it's nice to have that, and you're giving them the direct source.
Very good point, actually. So much of our opinions are being formed now algorithmically.
Yes.
Not even by choosing which newspapers you want to read, because
Right.
a lot of people. I mean, I'm 40. What year am I? What year is this? I'm 40, turning 46.
Yeah.
A lot of people, below the age of 30, don't read newspapers. They don't watch cable news. They get
Right.
everything from social media, and so a lot of
I know.
the media content is being algorithmically driven. So
Right.
we do need to provide some fact check, if you will. And I think that's been an incredibly powerful component of what AI can provide,
Right.
is that it does challenge oftentimes your basic assumptions. People come to the tool saying, "Oh, I heard on TikTok or whatever, Blue Sky or whatever, that this bill does X or Y," and the chatbot's like, I mean, I can read the legislative text right now. I have it
Right.
in my knowledge base, and it doesn't do that. So I think that's an important part of the discussion as well, is
Right.
we want people to understand the black and white of what the bill actually does, not who sponsored it and what are their political motivations, whether or not they like Trump or dislike Trump, or
Right.
which tribe are they in, but is this bill, as it's currently written, is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? Does it affect me in a positive way? Does it affect me or my community in a negative way? By just looking at the black and white, not all the noise around it. And I think that's an important part of what the tools can do.
I have a teenage son who is really into politics and stuff like that, and he loves debate. So, of course, he wants to argue about everything, but he gets a lot of his information, of course, from social media. I'm like, you cannot come to this argument with, with that type of, that's opinion based. That's not information. That's not fact based. You need to go check your source. So I can tell you, I will be absolutely redirecting him to your platform. No question. I'm like, go tell all your friends, please. I want you to get true information.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
that's well, good on him for wanting to be engaged. Oftentimes for young people,
Yeah, they have
there's
no
zero interest in being engaged in the first place. And the more they observe the angst and the struggle that their parents and their grandparents are
Right.
dealing with in politics, they won't, like, sometimes it's the parents won't even talk to the grandparents. I can't go to Thanksgiving anymore because they're not talking to each other anymore. And I mean, it's sad and it's kind of scary, right? So
Yeah.
I can understand that a lot of people, and especially young people, feel like politics has failed
Yeah.
and that it provides no discernible benefit. So why even engage? And I think that
Right.
we've got to give people a reason to believe again. We've got to give people a mechanism to have their voices heard and feel like there's some accountability, not like you're screaming into the void.
Right.
And I think we've got to show people that we have the ability to reimagine an American system of government that is more accountable, more transparent, and belongs to the American people,
Right.
not just to the politically powerful, not to the special interests or the lobbying groups or the people who have connections or the people who have money, but a system of government that belongs to all of us. So we've got to bring people back off of the sidelines. And my hope for our project is that it provides some glimmer of hope, if you will.
Yeah.
It provides an illustration of what our government could be
Mm-hmm.
if we really take advantage of what the technology landscape gives us to really rethink the fundamental problems that exist
Sure.
and how we would redesign a better system.
I like it. I like it. And I think it's nice that you're modernizing everything. It needs to happen. It just makes everything so much easier. And I like that people are going to have the opportunity to get the nitty gritty, exactly what is in the bill or the legislation. So I think that when you break it down in detail, it gives them the part to want to be a part of it, maybe want to go into politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think we get bad politicians or bad politics because we're bad people or that the American people are stupid. Yeah. I think there's oftentimes people just sort of wave their hands and say, oh, the average voter doesn't care about this or that or the other thing, or people don't read, or no, the system is designed to carve people out.
Yes.
That people in power don't want to listen to. And this is a bipartisan attack on voting rights. This is not one party doing this. I will quote consistently, because people will often argue that voter suppression is a thing that Republicans do. But the reality is there are more registered Republicans living in California than there are in Florida. And the registered Republicans in California have a Republican delegation to U.S. Congress of 8 seats. The registered Republicans in Florida have a Republican delegation to the U.S. Congress of 20 seats. And there are more Republicans in California. Right? So what that should say is that it's not about people's opinions or it's ultimately about where they live. In California, they are gerrymandered so that those Republicans' opinions are suppressed. And in Florida, they are gerrymandered so that those Republicans' opinions are elevated and the Democrats are suppressed, right? And in both places, independents how many independent senators? There's Bernie Sanders and Angus King, and I can't remember if Murkowski was an independent at one point, but not anymore.
Right.
So I think we have like 2 independent senators, right? So if you look at the actual number of independents, it's something like 50% of voters under the age of 40 are now registered independents. And at the electorate overall, it's something like 1/3 of Americans are registered independents. So you really have a system that is designed on purpose to suppress the opinions of voters. And what we need to do is create something like the Netflix of government, government on demand, where people can engage as much as they want with the tools that make it easy to engage. And that's, I think, what we need to be building as a society. Because if we want this American experiment to last another 250 years, it's going to need a major rework.
Yeah. When you were talking about gerrymandering, I was just envisioning, remember, was it a couple weeks ago in Texas where Jasmine Crockett, she had that race and there was redistricting right around there. And there was confusion at that vote at the last minute. Some people went to the wrong polls. So that can be completely eliminated altogether, because that was a mess. And that was unfair to so many people that were there to show up to vote, to cast their vote.
We've had a few dozen legislators in Florida and legislative candidates endorse Digital Democracy Project and say that they want to use this technology to hear from their voters. And several of them have spoken to us about how, they're not even sure which district they're going to represent. Here we are in April. The primaries are 4 months from now, and they don't even know what district they're supposed to represent. So they're either a sitting legislator who may be carved out of the district they currently are in, most likely because they're going to be gerrymandered out of it.
Sure.
Or they're a sitting legislator who's a Republican who may be in that gerrymandering process go from a strong red district to more of a purple district, where now they're going to have to compete, and they don't even know what the district boundaries look like. So they don't, they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how much money to spend on their campaign. They don't know how much they need to raise.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And this process, what's scary is this whole census redistricting. What it leads to is a system where every 2 years, if you don't like the election results, you go and gerrymander. And that's what we're going to be in.
Yep.
And I think that is a serious problem. Gerrymandering is already, like I said, I think the smoking gun for why our system is so broken.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be put on rails. I mean, this is a serious problem. If every 2 years the party in power gets to write new districts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what was the most recent state that just did the redistricting? Was it California or was it Texas?
So Texas did it. Then California passed a ballot initiative to authorize them to do it. Virginia is going to have a vote coming up, I think, in 10 days on gerrymandering.
Right.
Indiana actually rebuffed the push to gerrymander.
Mm-hmm.
I think to the great credit of a few Republican Indiana senators who probably ended their own careers in doing that.
Right.
And, I think that
it's a concern.
There is enough political courage out there. It's just, and it is on both sides of the aisle. There are occasionally situations where people are willing to stand up to their party and do what's right for their voters. It just feels like those folks are almost, trying to deal with a rising tide. And it's going to be back to us as voters to take responsibility for how we solve this problem. We cannot believe that the politicians are going to save us, because they are just as much stuck in a system of bad incentives that they cannot get out of. A lot of them go to office believing that they are Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. They do it for a reason of wanting to do something that is bigger than themselves, and for believing in a purpose and wanting to do the hard work. And then they get there and they find themselves spending 70 or 80% of their time dialing for dollars because they have to raise money in order to get
right. Yeah. It's pretty much most of the time that they're there. As soon as they get there, they have to start fundraising again for the next campaign.
Yeah. Because then they're on the hook to raise money for the party, or to raise money for to get a better, committee chairmanship, or, to get seniority within the chambers or whatever. I mean, it's like if you talk to them as individuals, as if you just engage with them as human beings, you can't help but walk away feeling sorry for most legislators.
They do. They get beat down by the system quite quickly.
Yeah. And they're and then they're being dumped upon by their voters, who are fed up with and feel like there's no accountability, and they're like, yeah, I hate it too.
Right. Most of the time, they only have 2 years to kind of make jump through hoops to get so many things done, and it's just not possible. Yeah, you do. You feel really bad for them. They are up against a large hill, for sure.
They are, and when in cases where you see them try to do the right thing, then they get primaried from their own party, so they get attacked from the right or attacked from the left, depending on which party they're in. And again, it comes back to gerrymandering, where if they were in a district where they weren't, it's such fear of the base, where they actually had to speak for voters at large. Oftentimes the folks in the purple districts are in a better position to, I guess you could say, speak their mind or take tougher votes. I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
The way the situation we found ourselves in, where the folks in the safe districts you would think would be the ones who would be safe to take a tough vote. And that's actually not the case anymore,
not at all,
because they're actually in such fear of the party base. I mean, I think it's just wild.
It's unfortunate. And to see that there's nothing moving forward through our Congress is very frustrating too. And how much just left sitting on their desk that's not being worked on or getting passed
Congress has completely abrogated its responsibilities. Article 1 of the Constitution said Congress is the only authority for declaring war.
Yes.
And yet somehow, and this isn't just Trump, by the way, Obama launched an illegal war in Libya. Clinton did lots there are plenty of examples of illegal wars going all the way back to Harry Truman and the Korean War. There was never a
Right.
declared war. So it's how Congress has allowed itself to be put in this position
Of no
of
power.
constantly just having to clean up after the president. I just don't understand.
Yeah, and just giving up their power too, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And
Yeah.
it's sad.
I mean, I think the state of affairs is pretty dim, but what I think our hope for with our project, as small as it is, we're an all volunteer team.
Mhm.
We've verified about 24,000 people so far into the app, and we need to figure out how we're going to get to 240,000, how we're going to get to 24 million, right? We want to have millions of people in all 50 states, but I think that our goal with this project is to provide some sliver of hope that there is a better way. And if we can just demonstrate it for people, they don't have to feel so completely dejected that they're just apathetic in this process, that there are tools, that there are mechanisms that we can introduce as citizens, that we can force our government to reform. We just have to know that it's out there. And I think that's why I really appreciate having the chance to come on and talk to you, because it's really then going to become folks like you in the media to spread the word, and to show people that there is an alternative, that there really are new ideas that can be developed, that we have the opportunity to reinvent a better system of government, and it is up to all of us to figure out how best to do that.
Yeah, and let's give the power back to the people, and let's get that new young generation into politics, right?
Absolutely.
And I think your platform can help do that. So
That's the hope.
I'm sorry?
That's the hope.
Yes, I think it's very cool. And again, I just think it's awesome. So what states are using it now? And you said hopefully next year, all 50 states?
That's right. Yeah. So the project is Digital Democracy Project. You can find us at digitaldemocracyproject.org. We're currently all voters in all 50 states can vote on federal bills. So if you are registered to vote in any of the 50 states, you can vote on the Iran War Powers Resolution or DHS funding bills or any of the number of federal bills that we've recently carried. But we are active in 7 states for the legislature, and that is Florida, Michigan, Virginia, Washington, Utah, Arizona, and Massachusetts. And our goal is to be in all 50 states at the beginning of next year. So all voters in all 50 states can currently vote on federal bills, and we've carried a lot recently, including the Iran War Powers Resolution, the DHS funding bill, which included TSA, for example. But we're in 7 states for state level legislation. So that's Florida, Virginia, Washington, Utah, Arizona, Michigan, and Massachusetts. And our goal is to be in all 50 states during the legislative sessions of 2027 and beyond. So you can vote on all state level legislation for your state. And then after probably 2028, we really want to be at local level. So we're looking at ways to do this where you could vote on municipal, so city level, or county or school board. I think a lot of people have come to us saying, I would really love this at the local level. Usually it becomes a challenge to actually get data on what a school board is up to, what votes are being considered, and then a record of how each school board member voted on that particular, so we could create a scorecard for them. So the data collection is what we're really trying to think through to get to a local level, because the mobile voting supports it. It really is just a matter of tracking a city councilman's vote on a particular issue and finding a good record of where that exists. But yes, that is our ambition.
That's great.
And so, digitaldemocracyproject.org. To all your listeners, we would love to have their participation. This is an all-volunteer crew. So
very impressive crew.
Well, thank you very much. And so everybody whose face you see on our team, they're all volunteers. We have lots of people who come and join us on Slack. We make that open to the public. If you want to join us on Slack, people can help us get out the word. If they're coders, they can help us develop. Our code is open source. They can contribute to it. They can also vote on the app is the number one thing we ask people to do. Just engage, read the policies, read the bills, get on the app and vote on the bills. The more people who vote, the more power we can have, because you've got to be able to put pressure on legislators, and they need to see large numbers before they really start to take action.
And the app is?
You can download the Votes app, VOATZ,
Mhm.
and once you get verified, you'll see bills through the Digital Democracy Project. Through our partnership with Votes, anybody who's voting in Votes, whether it's Votes is being used for a lot of elections around the country, but anybody will see bills that we carry in the Votes app for their respective state and for the federal government.
Great. Very cool. Well, I think it is an awesome platform. I think this is the right time. We are right in the mix of elections coming up. So this is the right time. And I'm very excited for it. And I will definitely be using it and passing the word. And I wish you and your team the best success for your platform. I think it's great. And for your company.
Well, thank you so much.
Well,
I really appreciate you having us. And like I say, it's going to be really important to help spread the word. So I appreciate you, allowing us to do that.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for us today. Thank you very much to our guest, Ramon Perez. Go check him and his team out at digitaldemocracy.org. Go check out the Votes app at VOATZ, and go check out Polywine on Instagram at PollyWineTime, at TikTok at Polywine, and listen to Polywine wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye.